Hi, my name is Michael Williams, and believe it or not, for many years I stuttered, probably from the time I was, 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, all the way up into my mid to late 20s. And so I understand what it's like to go through school, not being able to speak up when I know the answer. I mean, sometimes I would, of course. Not being able to read aloud, that's the thing I hated the most. Hating to answer the telephone, hating to stand up in front of the class because you never know when you're just not going to be able to say what you want to say. I know how it is to steer clear of certain jobs, to avoid certain situations, to simply not be as vocal and outgoing as I may have wanted to be because of always being afraid that I was going to stutter. So I know what it's like from the inside to have struggled with stuttering. And what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about several, in fact 7, common speaking situations that you and I might face that might cause one to what? To stutter. 7 common speaking situations that trigger, and I use trigger for a very specific reason. Trigger is something that when it's pulled, something else happens automatically. So what we're saying is that when you find yourself in these common speaking situations, you may automatically stutter. Now, I'm not saying that all 7 of these, and there are probably more, right? But all 7 of these apply to you. Maybe only 1, maybe 5, maybe 3, maybe 2. But what we find is that these are very common speaking situations that trigger stuttering. Automatically, you may find yourself beginning to get stuck, or even, now watch this, even thinking about these speaking situations may cause you to become anxious and cause you to anticipate that you're going to stutter. So we're going to look at 7 of these, and what we're going to do is we're going to walk through each one as quickly as possible, and then I'm going to share with you a solution to help release those triggers, because no one wants to walk around and be constantly afraid that they're not going to be able to answer the phone, or they're not going to be able to introduce themselves, or that even if they do get started well, that all of a sudden they're going to get stuck and boom, not be able to say what they need to say. So the first one that we're going to talk about has to do with speaking with someone in authority. So one common speaking situation that triggers stuttering for many people is when they have to speak with someone in authority. So what happens is when there's someone in authority, or someone in what we may perceive as authority, this could even be someone like a waiter, or someone who's taking our order, right, a drive-through, right? But it's someone that we may perceive as having authority. So it might be someone who's actually in authority, or someone that we perceive as having authority. So some examples of these might be our teachers or our professors, certainly our employers. It could even be a father or a mother, husband or a wife, right? An older brother or sister, a police officer. So anyone who's in authority, or someone that we perceive as being in authority. Now, what happens here? Why does this happen? Why does this perceived authority happen? Well, you're going to hear this answer from me, this response, in almost every one of these. Maybe not everyone, but almost every one. What tends to happen is when we feel and when we believe as though we're being judged, we often become very self-conscious. Now, this doesn't just happen to people who stutter. This happens to anyone, right, to varying degrees. So when we feel like we're being judged, or when we feel like we're being appraised or assessed, then we can become very self-conscious. So a person who stutters, now listen, a person who stutters then begins to think about or anticipate that they're actually going to stutter in this situation. Why? Why? So let's just talk about a couple of reasons why. So we're talking about authority figures, right? Authority, or even perceived authority. Why does this happen, right? Why might this happen? Well, one reason is because of judgment right? Another reason is because we feel like we're being assessed or evaluated, right? And what happens then is we believe that based on the fact that these people are going to be judging us, they're going to be assessing us, appraising us, evaluating us, that they somehow have the power to affect our life. So if it's an employer, then they have the ability or the power to change your pay, to, for example, not give you a raise, to not promote you, to not hire you, to fire you, to maybe look at you as not being as intelligent as you actually are. So we feel like as a result of these judgment, assessment, and appraisals, that this person is going to form an opinion of us that can have an impact on our livelihood, on our self-esteem, on our self-worth, right? On our ability to get a job, okay? So thinking about all of that stuff can cause one to become very, very self-conscious, very anxious, and actually trigger stuttering automatically. The other thing that may trigger stuttering in that kind of a situation is that it's happened before, right? In fact, this is very common throughout all of these. So something that may trigger it is that you remember that the last time that you were speaking in front of your employer or in front of your instructor or class or whatever, that you got stuck before. So if you got stuck before, then you're probably going to get stuck again, right? This is what we start to think. So one trigger is when speaking with someone in authority. Let's take a look at a second one. The second one here is when we are speaking with someone that we don't know or someone that we don't know very well, right? Speaking with someone that we don't know or someone that we don't know very well. When we're speaking with a person that we don't know, once again, there's this idea of judgment, that we're going to be judged by this person, even though we don't know them and they might not have any power over us, right? Power to affect our income or power to influence our friends or family, whatever it might be. We still feel like, ooh, I wonder what this person is thinking of me. I wonder what they will think or would think if I stuttered, if I got stuck. So when we are around people that we're not comfortable and relaxed, we become very self-conscious and our thoughts start to drift and we start thinking, I wonder what they're thinking of me. I wonder what they would think of me. And once our focus leaves the present moment and it starts to worry and it starts to anticipate and it starts to remember what has happened in previous situations, then we're no longer able to get into and stay into a nice speaking flow. We're no longer able to say the things that we want to say because our minds are elsewhere. And it's through the actual anticipation that we're going to get stuck that we actually get stuck. Okay. So then a second speaking situation that's very common is when we are speaking with people that we don't know or that we don't know very well. Now, what's another one? Another one is when we're speaking with people that we do know very well, right? So you're probably saying, well, what are you talking about, Michael? Well, sometimes around our family members or very close friends, we feel like we can just let our hair down and just speak the way we've always spoken. So if you've been stuttering most of your life, then when you get around certain people, you may find that you, in fact, stutter more than when you're around new people. And a part of the reason is because your brain has created a pattern, right, literally memories of how you spoke or how you speak with this person. Your brain does not want to spend a lot of conscious activity, a lot of conscious effort and energy on trying to figure out how to act and what to do in every situation that we face. So it wants to create patterns, routines for how to act, right? For how to think, for how to respond. So when we're around certain people, then it runs this routine, it runs this program, it runs the script that says, we're around this person and this is how we usually speak. And you don't even feel it or know it, it's just happening. The other reason for this is that we've developed an identity right? And so we have an identity for how we are with our mother, father, sisters, brothers, with our friends. We have these separate kind of little micro identities. And you have an identity for how you speak overall, and for how you speak around different people, and for how you speak in different situations. You have an identity for how you answer the phone, for how you talk on the phone, for how you say your name, right? It's little micro identities or self-concepts. So what happens is when you're around people that you know sometimes, then all of a sudden your brain just runs the program and says, this is how we're supposed to speak. So sometimes that can automatically trigger stuttering. Does that make sense? All right. What's another one? Let's take a look at another one here. So another one is speaking when you're the center of attention. Speaking when you're the center of attention. And I apologize that you might not be able to see all of this. It's cut off a few of the words, but you can certainly hear what I'm saying. So speaking when you're the center of attention, that's right. When we're the center of attention, what can happen is we can become extremely self-conscious, right? Extremely self-conscious. We can begin to think about, oh, they're looking at me. They're expecting me to perform in a certain way. And if I don't, I'm going to feel embarrassed. If I don't, people are going to talk about me. They're not going to judge me fairly because I'm actually a very intelligent person, but I might not speak as intelligently as I would like. Why? Because I'm nervous, because I'm anticipating that I'm going to get stuck. So if I'm trying to say something and I can't say this word, then I have to figure out, I have to avoid, I have to figure out other ways to say it, which may not be as articulate and intelligent as I would like. Does this make sense? So we start thinking about all of these things, and it literally distracts us. It takes our focus off of the audience, off of the content, off of the impact that we want to make. It takes it off of that, which is where it's supposed to be, right? It takes it off of that, and it places it on what we want to avoid. It places it on, I hope I don't stutter, and oh, here comes a word that I might stutter on, so then I'm going to have to do this. And then if we do get stuck, it often can mess up the rest of our presentation or the rest of whatever it is that we might be saying. So this can happen in a meeting, this can happen in a phone conference, in a video conference, in an interview, and certainly in any kind of a presentation, okay? So when we are the center of attention, and this can happen to anyone, right? When they're the center of attention, they can become quite anxious and very self-conscious, and this shifts the focus away from being in the moment, being in the flow, takes their attention and focus off of the primary goals, which is to convey a certain kind of information, to have a certain kind of impact, takes it off of that and puts it on, oh, I hope I don't do this. Does this make sense? So this is another common speaking situation that can cause many, many people to actually stutter. Now, here's another one. Speaking while or after you've compared yourself to someone else. And this can happen to just about anyone, right? That, in fact, when you compare yourself to someone else and you say, wow, look at how they're speaking. And I hear a lot of people say this, right? Say, wow, look at how that person's speaking. They don't stutter. They don't have any problem with their speech. In fact, they were very good. They were very eloquent. Why do I struggle with my speech? Why am I having such a problem? Why is it that I can't speak like that? So what happens to many people is when they compare themselves, when they compare themselves with other people, they all of a sudden become very self-conscious, and they become often frustrated about how they speak, and once again it shifts the focus off of what they're supposed to be doing and puts it on what they want to avoid. Okay, so this can happen very quickly and very easily to any of us when we're comparing. In fact, I saw this happen to a lady that I know, and she was a PhD, actually a very good speaker, but someone went before her who was very good, And when she sat there and she watched them, and then she started thinking, oh, wow, I hope I'm able to say this. I hope I'm able to engage the audience like this, and I'm not that funny. And so as she started to think this and compare herself, when she got up, the first part of her presentation wasn't as good as she knew it could have been. And once she got relaxed and once she got that out of her mind, then she started to get into her own what? Her own flow, her own rhythm. So comparing ourselves is huge. It can impact our self-esteem, it can impact our self-confidence, and it can impact our speech. Has that ever happened to you? Okay, so let's take a look then at this next one. This next one is when we are speaking when under time pressure. So, speaking when under time pressure, that means, and let me just give you a couple of examples again, ordering food. I can't tell you how many of my clients have told me that when they go to Starbucks or they go to the local coffee shop and they have to get up and they go, okay, let me get the caramel macchiato, whatever it is, tall, and there's people standing behind them and they feel that time pressure. Like I say, and what's your name? And then they have to give their name. They feel under pressure, they begin to feel anxious, and it causes them to lock up, to block up, to start stuttering. So under time pressure could be ordering food, going through the driveway, in a restaurant, in a coffee shop. It could be when you're in a meeting and someone asks you a question and boom, now you're the center of attention and you feel like you're under time pressure, like you have to hurry up and give the answer. It could be when you're just talking with your boss or you're talking with someone and you have to respond, or someone gives you something and you want to say thank you. It could be any of those things where you feel like you're under extreme time pressure, okay? So when this happens, it causes us to become very anxious, and it's that anxiety that can cause one to become very tight and then trigger this routine of, I can't get it out, stuck, blocking, stuttering. Does this make sense? So when you're under time pressure, what's another one? Well, we've got one more, and this last one, and these are not in any order of priority, is speaking when you're telling a story, right? So speaking when you're telling a story or explaining something. Many people, and I've watched my clients do this sometimes, when they start explaining something or telling a story, and they've even told me that when this happens, they often begin to stutter or to get stuck or not speak as fluently as they would like. Why does this happen? Well, one of the reasons is often that if they've been speaking well all the other times, but then when they have to go tell a story or explain something, they shift into somewhat of a different state, right? Now they feel like, and they start to think, okay, now I have to think about something very specific. I have to say whatever it is I'm going to say in a very specific order. If you're telling a joke or a story, it's got to be in a specific order. So then they start thinking about the words, or they start thinking about what they have to say. And once they get to that level of thinking specifically about exactly what they need to say and the order they need to say it in, and even sometimes the words they need to use, what's happening? Well, what's happening is it's very much like trying to walk and think about how you're walking. It's like I'm walking and I'm thinking about, how am I moving my feet? How am I moving my legs? How am I bending my knees? How am I moving my arm? And if I start to think about that and try to take that over, I'm going to be walking very strange. And if you try running up the steps and thinking about how your feet and your legs are moving, you can actually trip, right? You can actually trip and fall because it's something that you've learned how to do automatically. And when we try to take back something into our consciousness that historically has been something that we've done unconsciously or subconsciously, we often don't perform as well. So it's just like an athlete or anything that you've learned to do automatically. When you try to take it back into consciousness and think about how to do it, we often don't do it as well, okay? Because our brains have developed a routine. It's become automatic. We've reached a level of automaticity. And then when you try to take it out of automaticity and you try to consciously do it, then we become very rigid. It's not as fluent, it's not as smooth as it normally would be. Okay? So, what happens is when we are telling a story or explaining something, we get out of the flow, right? Sometimes, not everyone, not all the time. We get out of the flow, we kind of go into a different state. And this causes us not to speak as smoothly as we are capable of speaking. So let's just kind of go back here and take a look at all 7 of these. Hopefully you'll be able to see these. But one is speaking with someone in authority. A second one is speaking with someone that we don't know or don't know very well. Third is speaking with someone that you do know. Remember, there's that pattern, there's that identity. A fourth one is speaking when you're the center of attention, a presentation. Someone asks you a question in a meeting, when you're on the phone and you're announcing your name in a meeting, when you have to do, when you raise your hand in class and you want to ask a question or answer a question, or when you're reading, right, they're going around the table. I used to hate that, right? You're in a meeting and they're going around the table and they're getting to you and they're saying, in fact, I had to do that this past week and I was away at a retreat and they went around the table. And of course they say, you know, everyone just introduce yourself and say this, and now it's fine. I mean, I love to do it, but in the past I used to hate to do it, right? So when you're the center of attention, speaking while or after you've compared yourself with others, ooh, wow, that person spoke really good. Why do I have to struggle? Speaking when you're under time pressure, so it's when you feel like, you got to respond right now. You got to respond in a certain way. And speaking when you're telling a story or when you're explaining something. These are all speaking situations that can trigger stuttering. Now, what can you do about it? Well, imagine if there was a way that you could release these triggers, right? Imagine if there was just a way where you could, one by one. So for some of you, not all of these situations trigger stuttering for you. For some of them, it might just be one. For some of you, it might be 2 or 3 or 5. For some of you, it might be all of them. There might be some different ones or combinations, right? But imagine if you had a systematic way to go in and just imagine just releasing those triggers, right? Systematically releasing those triggers so that when you needed to make a phone call, when you needed to talk to your boss, when you needed to talk to a supervisor, when you needed to talk to a client or a customer, when you needed to make a presentation, when you wanted to explain something or tell a story, when you wanted to order that coffee, and you wanted to introduce yourself, imagine that you were able to systematically retrain your brain, rewire your brain, reprogram yourself, right? Where you could say exactly what you wanted to say the way you wanted to say it without that anticipation, that worrying about, I hope I don't get stuck, I hope I don't stutter this time. Every time I say my name, I stutter. What if there was a way that you could unplug that you could release that trigger, that thing that happens without you even thinking about it, the fact you don't want it to happen and it happens anyway? What if you could release that? What if you could release that? Well, there is a way that you can systematically release those triggers and retrain yourself, reprogram, rewire your brain so that you create new experiences, that you create a new identity, so that when you're with your family or you're with your friends or you're with someone you don't know, whatever the situation might be, that trigger's been released, right? It no longer causes you to go into this automatic pattern or routine of and not being able to say what you want to say. There is a way for you to do it. One of the things that I'm going to do right now is I'm going to give you one strategy that you can use immediately, and then I'm going to share with you kind of part 2 of that strategy, right? How to develop a systematic approach. So one strategy that you can use is you can begin to tell yourself something different. Tell yourself, call it self-talk, whatever, internal conversation, whatever you want to call it. What often happens is we allow the routine to run on its own. And what we have to do is we have to interrupt that pattern. We have to interrupt that program, that script, by literally telling ourselves something different. Like, hey, I don't have to rush. I can take my time. I don't really care who it is that I'm talking. It doesn't matter if I'm talking to my boss. I'm going to take my time and say what I want to say the way I need to say it. I'm not going to feel under pressure. I'm going to feel calm, relaxed, and confident, and I'm going to communicate as intelligently and as articulately as I possibly can. So talking to yourself, not just one time, but constantly, consistently reprogramming your thinking so that you begin to think, feel, and speak differently. Does this make sense? Does this make sense? So what you're going to have to do is develop a systematic way of talking to yourself, not just when you're in the situation, but before the situation, talking to yourself all throughout the day, talking to yourself when you're in the various situations, talking to yourself after the situation. Hey, that's okay, you got a little stuck, that's all right. Right? So talking with yourself is one huge strategy that many of my clients, many of my students, almost all of them, have told me that this has been one of the most important strategies and or techniques or tools that they have in their toolbox. So the other thing that you're going to need, right, in order to release these triggers so that you're no longer walking around afraid or avoiding situations and not being the person that you're capable of being, not doing the things that you really want to do, that you're called to do, not taking the jobs that you want, not making the income that you deserve, not being in the relationships that you want to be in, not being able to speak up in the relationships you're currently in, right? That is not taking advantage of the opportunities because of this worry, this limitation that you feel like has been placed on you. And up until now, you may have tried other things and you may have felt like, oh, I've tried this and worked for a little while and it stopped. You may have felt like you're just, there's no hope. Once you know there is hope, I've helped many people. I see it. It's long term. It's not short term. It's just like learning a new language. You learn it and you practice it and it becomes automatic, right? So one of the things that you're going to have to put into place in order to make this new reality true is you're going to need a systematic process for changing the way you think and feel, and changing, now watch this, changing the way you think and feel, and changing the way you speak. So a systematic process for changing the way you think, changing your attitude, your beliefs, what you say to yourself, and actually changing physically the way you speak. I'm not talking about speaking in some kind of weird way. I'm talking about speaking smoothly and clearly and fluently and confidently, right? So you need a systematic process. And a part of this process, as a component of this process, you're going to need audios. Now follow me here. Audios, what are you talking about? Okay. You're going to need audios that target certain thoughts and that provide you with information to help target and train you and teach you in a new way of speaking. Why audios? Well, you could do it with videos as well, but if there's a video there, you're going to feel like you need to watch it, which means you're going to feel like you need to stop and sit down and watch the video, and I don't really like to watch a whole lot of videos either. So audios are things that you can actually listen to while you're doing other things. Now you can put on a video and listen to it, and many people do that while they're doing the dishes, while they're doing, they just put the videos on, they listen to it, they listen to the audio part. So you can do it with audios or videos, but audio is something that you can pop in when you're driving, when you're in transit to work or to school, when you're coming back, during your breaks, while you're working out. You can listen to those audios, and these targeted audios can change your thinking. They call it passive learning. You're just listening and you're learning, and it's literally making an imprint on your brain, creating new pathways of thinking. Okay, so you're going to need audios. What else are you going to need? You're going to need a daily routine. Why? Because what you're doing in order to release these triggers is you're literally rewiring, you're retraining, you're reprogramming your brain, right? So in order to do this, what you need is a daily routine where you are doing a few things. Number one, you're listening to this audio. Number Number two, you are saying certain things to yourself to change your self-talk, to change your inner conversation. Number three, you're going to need a practice routine where you're physically practicing speaking in a brand new way. And now, I know some people are like, I don't want to speak in a new way, I just want to not stutter. Well, unfortunately, stuttering treatment in the traditional sense simply doesn't work for many people, right? Especially for many adults. For children, I believe it'll work. It works very well. For some adults, it works. For many adults who stutter, I almost want to say for most adults who stutter, traditional treatment just doesn't work because they're approaching it from an older approach, right? There's an older approach that they're using to approach stuttering. The Pro 90D approach says you create a brand new way of speaking. As we don't treat it, we replace it. We don't treat it, we replace it, right? You create a new way of thinking and a new way of speaking. So you're going to need a daily routine that includes a new way of speaking. It's not a strange way. The way that you will be speaking will be one that people will admire. It'll be one that people will say, wow, that was very smooth. That was very clear. You were very articulated. You had an impact. In fact, just this past weekend, I was at a business retreat, a business conference that I was a part of, that I was a participant. But I was asked to speak on 2 different occasions on the same day within a couple of hours of each other. Didn't have a lot of time to prepare. And in one, I was speaking before an audience of over 100 and some people with a mic on stage. And the other, I was actually teaching a little mini workshop for about 30 some people. And you know what people told me both times? Even though I felt nervous, I felt anxious both times. Well, I think the first time I felt more anxious being up on stage than I did in the workshop. I didn't feel that nervous then. But each time people came to me and said, that was so smooth, that was so calming, but it was very powerful, it was very clear, it was very engaging. Just multiple people would come up and tell me the same thing just a couple of days ago. So what I'm sharing with you in this new speaking style won't be one that's strange, it won't be one that's not you, it'll very much be you, it'll be a better speaking you. So one of the things that you're going to need is a systematic process that includes audio that targets your thinking, that teaches you certain things about how to think and how to speak. You're going to need some kind of a daily routine, right? And a part of this daily routine is going to be teaching you a new way of speaking. So here's the thing. You can try to put all those things together yourself, and you probably can. But it's going to be kind of difficult, right? Because you're going to go out and find audios that are targeted to and for people who stutter and the kinds of things that they think about. You're going to need a daily routine that actually works, right? That's been proven, one that's not just based on somebody coming up with something, that's based on science and based on experience, right? Based on people just like yourself, professionals. I've worked with doctors, I've worked with people who are in law, I've worked with students, I've worked with company owners, I've worked with engineers, lots and lots and lots of engineers from all around the world. I have a client in Slovenia, I have a client in Saudi Arabia, I've had a client in Australia, in India, in the UK, many clients in the UK, in Canada, in the US, all over the world, even some countries that are Abu Dhabi, that I can't even remember right now, right? So this works for people. Doesn't matter if English is your first language or your second language or third language. People in Portuguese, people in Latin American who spoke English enough, but their English wasn't that strong, the system still works for them, right? Even when the majority of the time they're speaking in their own language, the system still works for them. So what I want to invite you to do is, I want to invite you to take a look at our self-study premium program, okay? And it's specifically designed for people that are struggling with their speech, who want to say what they want to say, when they want to say it, without being worried about stuttering. You want to say what you want to say confidently, you want to say what you want to say smoothly and fluently. You don't want to have to worry about stuttering. So I want to invite you to take a look at our self-study premium program, because it's a systematic process that's been tested by people like you, that's scientifically based, And that will give you those targeted audios. It'll give you that daily routine, which includes a way for you to literally change your speech and change the way that you think. And if that's something that you're interested in, then I want you to take advantage, because for the next 48 hours from the time you got this video, I'm going to give you 10% off. So you're going to get a special link and it'll take 10% off the price. Now you're probably wondering, well, how much is it? Well, it's about $274, and you just take 10% off of that, but only for the next 48 hours. Why? Why is this? There's this sense of urgency, because I know as a fact that there are many people out there who are watching this video who will say, oh yeah, that sounds good. That sounds a good idea. Something I've been meaning to work on. I've been looking for something. I found this video. I believe this can work for me, but let me just think about it. Let me think about it. Let me just, maybe I'll do it next week. Maybe I'll do it a little later. And what I find is that I've had clients and I've had people on my list, that's many thousands and thousands of people on my list for years, and they've put it off for one reason or another. And for some people it's legitimate, just wasn't the right time. But for other people it's just fear or doubt or something else got in the way. Your speech is very important. Let me tell you, once you get past this, all you need is 10 minutes a day to practice your speech. Sure, you need to listen to some audio, but you're already driving, so pop in the audio. But 10 minutes a day minimum. Do 20, do 30, 40 minutes of practice. But 10 minutes a day is all you really need to transform your speech and change your entire life. 10 minutes a day. 10 minutes a day for how long? Depends on you. I've seen major transformations in as little as 8 weeks, sometimes less, 8 to 12 weeks. So what you want to do is you want to take a look at this course, and I want you to take action now, so I'm giving you an incentive, because I know it's good for you. It's not a matter of I'm trying to sell you something and I want you to buy it now. It's a matter of I know this works, and it's a matter of you taking advantage of it now as opposed to later. Because I've seen people who then come to me later, a year later, 2 years later, 4 years later, and say, man, I wish I had done this before. I wish I had taken this course before. I wish I had done the coaching before. So I want to incentivize you and motivate you and encourage you and hopefully inspire you. Take action now, get started now, and watch how your life changes. Now, you got to do the work. You got to do the work, right? But if you do it, I promise you, you're going to start to see results. Now, some of you are already familiar with this system and you know that self-study is not going to work for you. Then I just want to invite you to click the other link and schedule a one-on-one private consultation or breakthrough session with me, where we'll talk about the best options for you. And I'll be quite honest with you, and I'll tell you, some people say, well, what do you think is best, the 8-week or the 12-week? And some people probably expect me to say, oh, I think the 12 weeks is going to be better because it costs more, right? No. I tell a lot of people, no, I don't think you should start with 12. I think you should start with the 8-week. Or I tell people, I think you should start with the course first, right? Which is 10 times less. So I'm going to be honest with you, and if it's not a good fit, if I feel like this system's not going to work for you, I'm going to tell you that. I'm going to say, well, why don't you watch some of my free videos first and then come back, okay? So who is this for? Who should purchase this? People who are professionals or professionally minded, and people who are ready to make a change in their life. People who are ready to go to the next level. If you're ready to go to the next level and you're tired of worrying about stuttering, of worrying about it constantly, you're tired of that, you're ready to make a change, you're ready to go to the next level, then this is for you. If you just want to stop stuttering, that's all you want, and you're not ready to take your life to another level, even though not stuttering can help you do that, but I'll tell you why I'm saying this. You need to be ready to go to the next level. And for me, the next level means that you actually want to become an excellent speaker, that you actually want to be able to communicate more with people. You want to be able to do presentations. In fact, it's something you desire to do. This program will work best for you. If you only want to stop stuttering and you really don't want to get out and talk to anybody, but when you do have to talk, you just don't want to have to be worried about stuttering, then can this work for you? Yes, but it's not really designed for that. It's not really designed for you if all you want to do is not stutter, and you're not really going to go out and apply yourself and use it and talk to people. Does that make sense? Because it's like a language. The more you go out and use it, the better you're going to get at it. So if you really don't want to go out go outside your comfort zone. If you really don't want to do it, then it's not going to work very well for you. But if you want to get out there and you want to present and you want to talk to people, it's going to work like gangbusters for you. Okay? Makes sense, right? Okay. So if this is for you, go ahead and click that link now, 48 hours, you'll get 10% off. And if you already know that you need accountability, you need evaluation, you need feedback, you need encouragement. If you know you need those things because you can become distracted by life or whatever, if you know that you become discouraged, then take a look at and get in touch with me about our coaching. But if you want to start out and you know that, hey, I think I can work on this myself, do the self-study. All the information is right there. Click the link, it'll take you there. You can see exactly what the self-study premium is all about, and you can go ahead and contact me so I can send you a very special discounted link. Okay? So thank you very much for watching this. I hope this was helpful. Remember, these 7 common speaking situations are situations that all of us find ourselves in, and that probably for you it's been triggering stuttering. And what I'm telling you is that there is a place you can be where you can release those triggers and where you don't have to worry anymore, and where you can say what you want without the fear of stuttering. My name is Michael Williams. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you inside this program and I look forward to working with you in the future, working with you soon. Okay? Bye.